Welcome back to Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khalifa, and I am thrilled that you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the gentleman I'm interviewing today. His name is Tony Stephan, and Tony's from Detroit, and he's got a lot of assets himself in his own portfolio, and he also has a telehealth business. So we're going to talk about health for sure, because that's something I love talking about. Hey, brother, welcome.
Rod, thank you so much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And he's got his own podcast as well, which I'll be interviewing on here at some point, the Tony Stephan Show. But so what's your story, man? Tell me who you are.
I would say there's a long story and then the short version. So I'll give you the short version. I'm happy to expand into it a little bit. Like you said, my background's in telehealth as a registered dietitian. I actually got started in an interesting way. So I was 14 years old. My mother had left home. She was battling with a drug addiction. So my father sat me down. We were months behind on our mortgage, going to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. We were going to lose our home. We were on food stamps, so we were in financial struggle. He taught me, though, as a young man going through, a lot of adversity, a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. He taught me fitness as an outlet. I don't know if you ever remember those old school Joe Weider weight benches.
Sure.
Yeah. Because I can tell you're in shape, So I know you.
You see my gym downstairs?
Oh, I was definitely admiring it.
All right.
It was beautiful. Yeah. But he taught me fitness as an outlet, and as an outlet to deal with adversity, pain, struggle.
Stress.
Yeah. Stress management is the ceiling to our potential in life, right? And I loved it so much. I said, wow, I want to dedicate my life to help other people who are going through stress, adversity. So became a certified personal trainer at age 18, went to school, became a registered dietitian, and started off working in the health clubs, helping clients, all those great things. I felt a bigger call to help more people. So at 26, I emptied my savings account, charged up my credit card, hired a mentor actually out in California. So flew out there to learn how to build a business online. Instead of just seeing people one-to-one, face-to-face in an office, built an online telehealth business as a registered dietitian. And that was the start. It was a struggle at first, like most new businesses. We emptied everything we had. We put, money on credit cards. First couple of years was a struggle, but then as the years went on, something you always preach is, real estate's a long-term game, business is a long-term game, social media is a long-term game. I was blessed to say it took off. We had thousands of customers, 21 different countries. And then that became the seed capital we used to start to invest in real estate.
Wow. You have thousands of customers in your telehealth business.
Yeah, 21 different countries.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So talk about your real estate journey.
So
we're going to go back to the telehealth.
100%.
But this is a real estate show, so we should definitely spend some time there.
Absolutely. Yeah, business is not an avoidance of problems. It's new levels, new devils. And we always say you start off with like first world problems, right? Like how do I make money? How do I get a customer? How do I get my first rental property? For me, it was after a while, our business was doing a lot of revenue, right? It's telehealth, so I don't have many write-offs. Everything's online. I have a computer.
You pay a lot of taxes.
You pay a lot of taxes.
By the way, let me interject something here. The key in life is to have better quality problems.
Agreed.
Like right now, I need more coaches.
Yeah.
That's a quality problem.
Agreed.
So, right. So please continue.
No, I agree. I think freedom is choosing the problems you want to solve.
Yeah.
Right. I remember, I think it was 2019, we wrote a $400,000 check to the IRS. And Rod, I said, never again.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's so funny. I had the same exact thing happen to me about you when I was about that age. It was $500,000, but who's counting? But
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I started researching like, okay, how do you, because I always heard the wealthy don't pay taxes. Well, how do the wealthy not pay taxes, right? You start to research, okay, real estate professional status, depreciation. I realized we were crap. We were cash rich, but asset poor. We had no assets. The only asset my wife and I had was a home we lived in. So we made a decision like, hey, the 401k route doesn't make sense for us. Stock market, I feel like is designed to make Wall Street wealthy.
Well, that's been crazy the last few
month
and a half. Yeah.
Right. So we said, let's go all in on real estate and started with one house. And now today it's 258 units.
258. And you told me you've got 100 unit, you've got small stuff like in 16 unit range. You probably got some single family as well.
We sold all the single family.
Oh, did you? Good.
1031 into a 56.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Yeah. It took me 2,000 houses to get that memo, but
that's crazy. Yeah.
But, wow, that's awesome. And so you've done some cash out refis. You want to talk about that? Because, you guys have all heard about the BRRRR method, right? Buy, renovate, refinance, repeat. Well, you've done it with some multi, right?
Yeah.
But so have I, but talk about yours.
It like you said, I think everyone starts with single family because you feel like this is where I have to start, right? Like for us,
just about everybody. I met one person I think that started with 100 unit. He was a unicorn, but
that's smart.
Right.
Yeah. Just houses made sense to us. So we started with that. But I realized it was a really slow way to wealth, right? We were buying these houses, we put a tenant in it, they pay it off. You're like, okay, whatever, right? I bought a 7-unit, and the 7-unit was in a great area. Something you always talk about, like don't compromise location. Couldn't agree more, right? Bought this 7-unit. It was business debt, so that was the first really interesting thing, right? It wasn't going on my credit report, it wasn't going on my credit score. They weren't looking at my debt to income ratio. The rents were about $750. We knew the market rents could be $1,100.
Wow.
And something you always talk about too is NOI,
Right.
right? We love multifamily because it's valued based on a business, right? The more profit my business produces, the more valuable it is. So as an entrepreneur with a business background, that just made sense to us, right? So we took it over. They were month-to-month leases, lightly outdated units. So we just started doing light upgrades. It was back when debt was 3.9%. So we had a lot of cash flow to just kind of pump right back into the deal.
Hope you got fixed rate.
Yes, 10 years. 10 years.
Good.
Yeah. And then we took the NOI. The first year was 30,000. We took it to 60,000. That building, so I paid 660 for it. Building reappraised for $1 million. Was able to do a cash out refinance, take $250,000 out tax free, which was more than I put down. Once we saw that, Rod, it was like The Matrix. Do you remember that movie where it's like red pill, blue pill?
Sure.
We took that red pill. We could never look back at single family.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. It's a little harder to do now with the interest rates where they are and
100%.
stuff like that. There was a golden era back then, but let's hope it comes back. I mean, Trump's trying to get rid of the head of the Federal Reserve, and because he wants to drop interest rates. So it's kind of a balancing act because that'll probably trigger inflation again. So.
Sure.
It's like it's going to be. We're in crazy times right now with these
100%.
245% tariffs on China. It's like holy crap. But this country's in deep shit. So thank God he came on board, and he's not settled.
Agreed.
I saw an interview this morning with Mr. Wonderful talking about. I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit, but saw an interview with Mr. Wonderful. I forgot the show.
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Thank you. And he does a lot of business in China. He says they have been screwing us for years.
I believe it. Yeah.
Stealing inventions and knockoffs and not allowing U.S. companies to get big footholds in China without Chinese involvement. It's so I'm really glad it's happening. But I did a Facebook Live on this last weekend, and oh my God, I got so much hate from people about Trump's going to ruin the relationship and blah blah blah. No, Trump's playing chess, not checkers.
That's right.
So, but you're basically vertically integrated. You have your own real estate brokerage. You have your own construction component, maintenance people, whatever. You do your own turns and you have your own management.
Yes.
Yeah, which is great when you're in a single geographic area like you are. That's a fantastic way to do it. I still have a management company actually, but I get a lot of one thing I've discovered just as an aside, just to teach a little bit for a second. In the last year, I had to take over 23 of our assets that my partner was running that he ran into the ground, and in 7 states.
Wow!
And I'm going to tell you, that's not the way to do it.
Right.
You're much better off. The most successful entrepreneurs that I see in this business are the ones that are geographically specific.
Love that.
They stick with one market.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to suggest to my students anymore. And let me brag for a moment. I just found out literally 5 days ago that my students now own 260,000 units.
We heard.
You
We were
heard?
listening on the way in. That's impressive.
Like, holy crap.
That's amazing.
Just
Congrats to
really,
you.
really proud of that. That we know of. It's probably pushing 300 at this point because a lot of people don't respond. But anyway, so you've done these complete cash out refis, which is fantastic. Are you going to continue to buy for your own account? Are you thinking about maybe syndicating at some point? What are your thoughts for your future?
That's a great question. So for us, Rod, it's very much so. We keep the main thing, right? We build our businesses. We build our enterprises. So every year, I kind of joke, it's like we're in the mafia. We have to buy till we die, right? Because we need those tax write-offs.
Right.
My wife qualifies as a real estate professional, which I know you talk about.
Right.
So we can cost segregate our buildings and take all that depreciation.
So she's the pro instead of you. Interesting.
She
'cause
is
you're
the
doing
pro.
well, we know she is anyway,
Yeah.
but I mean as far as real estate.
She's
got
the
it.
real estate
Got it.
professional.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how the real estate brokerage all came about. Like you said, it was all kind of vertically integrated.
Yeah.
We started with third-party management. We created a management company because we had to.
Oh, because they suck. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Exactly.
sir. Yes,
It's
sir.
very rare to find a good property management company, and it's really more property specific.
100%.
Because I noticed this when I took over the asset management of these 23 assets, about 2,000 units, that there were different management companies, but the assets that were doing good were the ones that had great on-site staff. It really didn't matter what the management company was.
Yep.
So anyway, I don't know if your experience was different. So you started it out of need.
Out of need.
Yeah.
Yep. Same thing with the brokerage. People then started contacting us, like seeing what we're doing on social media, which you're a huge proponent of.
Right.
Right. If people don't know you, they can't flow you. And the more hands you shake, the more, money
Right.
you can make.
Right.
So they started seeing that. They're like, hey, can we work with you? And so we're like, why are we paying Keller Williams? Let's just create our own
Yeah,
brokerage.
nice,
Right.
nice.
Yeah. So that's how it all came about. I love how you said vertically integrated. That's something we talk about a lot.
Yeah,
too.
well, that's that. Yeah, when you control every aspect of the business, that control really equates to cost savings. It equates to a better quality. The business runs better.
100%.
Period. So, love it. So, talk about some good decisions you've made and maybe some not so good decisions you've made in this journey of yours. Just to, and I want to, talk about some pain. Talk about, I call them seminars. Talk about some seminars you've had maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, and just in
Right. It's easy to pick. Right.
Yeah. Right. No, what do you say all the time? You're like, ask me how I know.
Ask me. That's right.
I love that.
We have T-shirts. Hashtag Ask Me How I Know.
No,
A
I
student
love
got for me. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was just thinking I had to start small. Right. Like I had to start, it had to be linear, right? It had to be a house, then a duplex, then a fourplex. And if I wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy. Now, fortunately, we were able to sell those and take the money out, 1031 exchange. We just wasted a lot of time with that, on a very, very slow, kind of painful path with the third-party management managing those two. They just killed us on duplexes. We had 15,000, 20,000 unit turns.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, by the way, I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah.
Guys, when you, sorry to interrupt, but this is an important teaching point. When you hire a property management company, find out, especially if you've got an asset that's under, say, 40 units or 50 units, because you're going to rely on their maintenance infrastructure. And maintenance is a huge profit center for management companies. They'll hire some kid at $15-16 an hour and bill them out at 75. So really dig into that, because you will get screwed like he's talking about here. I've had it happen to me numerous times, and find out if they upcharge contractors, or if they do it dollar for dollar. Sometimes they'll upcharge, contracting bids for the supervision, quote unquote. So really dig into the maintenance when you're hiring a management company. And by the way, I've got a great book on this that's free on how to hire a third-party property management company. It's on rodslinks.com. It's in the free book section. I think it's the best book out there on the topic, and it's free, so the price is right. So check that out if you are thinking about hiring a property management company, because it's got all the questions you should ask and things you should think about. Anyway, I hope I didn't completely derail your thought process.
That's exactly correct, though.
Okay.
There was like a 35% markup on everything.
Right.
The maintenance hourly rate was $100 an hour, and they were always finding things to do.
Oh, sure.
It wasn't ever fix something; it was just completely replace it.
Sure.
Right, for more billable hours. So thinking like real estate wasn't like any other business, to where you make your money in the management and the operations, right? And we just kind of built 87 units at that time, gave it away, and said, all right, well, they'll have our best interest in mind. No, they had their best interest.
Right.
Lost a lot of money and time on that.
So I've got a lot of listeners that have a job, have a W-2. They may even call it the rat race. Some of them may like what they do, but they know they need more. They want freedom. They want time freedom, money freedom to go do whatever they want, whenever they want, with whoever they want. But they haven't taken action yet. And speak to them.
Yeah.
Just give them some advice, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah. If you feel called to be an entrepreneur, it's not for everybody, right? But if you feel called to be an entrepreneur, you have to answer that call of the conscious, right? Something I always talk about is conscious congruency. Like what the voice inside of you, the voice of God, the voice of the universe, whatever you believe in, like you have to answer that call, right? And imperfect action always beats standing still. And proximity is power. So if you feel called to do something, you just don't know how to do it. I mean, you have to get around people who are doing it. That's why you do all the boot camps and the webinars and all those things. You have to live like that, because something I just learned early on from losing my mother at a young age is, man, life is finite, right? And at the end of your time, you have to answer for your life. And did you live in fear or did you live in faith? Faith is, even if this happens, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to progress. Fear is what if, right? Well, what if I quit my job and we lose all our money? Or what if I buy this rental property and everything can go wrong? Just which one do you want to operate from, right? At the end of your life, you have to answer for that. Did I operate in faith? Or do I operate in fear?
Yeah. And do I have regret?
Yeah.
You know, there's that nurse in Australia that wrote a book about this. She was a hospice nurse, and she asked people that were dying if they had any regrets. And I think the book is The 5 Regrets of Dying or something like that. Her name is Bronnie Ware. And the number one regret was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. Christ, I can't think of anything worse than that.
Right.
So don't fear failure. You know, I've started 29 businesses. Several worth tens of millions of dollars, most spectacular flaming seminars, but we failed our way to success, right? So on this journey of yours, talk about any epiphanies that you had, any aha moments.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier. Let regret be your guide, right? That's something like we don't get to choose our regrets. You know, sometimes people think like, oh, I can choose to regret this. Like, no, that's an internal message from above, right? So a lot of different regrets and a lot of different epiphanies. I think one of the first epiphanies was, though, I was crap. I was in my late 20s. We had just made our first $1 million profit. So we had over $1 million in the bank, right? Which I'm, don't say to impress anyone, but to impress upon them. We were crap. COVID then was right around the corner.
Well, what do you say you were crap?
Cash rich, asset poor.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I was wondering what the hell you meant by that. Okay,
yeah, no, I guess I should have explained that,
That's
right?
all right.
Just keep saying that. But COVID came around the corner. I saw so many businesses get decimated, right? Get told to shut down. They're never coming back. I was in telehealth, so our business was booming. But I right away saw if anything ever changed in my business and like a COVID hit, like telehealth or what we were doing, I'm susceptible to that. So I also learned in another big epiphany, the worst number in business is one way to make money, one revenue stream, one way to get customers. Like single family home, you have one customer there. 100 unit apartment, you have 100. My wife and I talk about this all the time. 2 people move out in an 8 unit, you feel it. 4 people move out of an 8 unit, you're distressed. 4 people move out of our 100 unit, you don't even feel it. You just keep it moving, right? So the epiphany of I wish I would have invested sooner. I was saving out of scarcity, not realizing my money was losing money every day due to inflation and devaluation of the dollar. And just the more customers or the more revenue streams you have, the more secure you are. And that could just be in a business, that could be in life, and that's definitely in real estate. That's why the multifamily, the more doors you have, the more protected that business is too, as long as it's a good asset, obviously.
Agreed. I'll tell you, I think we are heading into a golden time for investment. Certainly in the multifamily space, there's a meltdown happening. There's $1.5 trillion in debt coming due by the end of this year. And those people either have to refinance, which is very, very difficult right now because the rates are up and they can't meet debt service coverage requirements, or they have to sell, and sales are down 90%. So we're going to see some pain. And I will tell you, I think we're going to see some regional banks collapse as well. Wow. I really believe that. And I've got my money in bank that gets spread out over 80 banks with no more than 250 in each bank, so I'm covered by the FDIC. Wow. And the reason I believe that is there's a ton of commercial debt in trouble right now. I mean, listen, to office. I'm in office. I mean, we're 50, 60% occupied, and DOGE is going to be eliminating a lot of organizations, government organizations, and the government's the largest landlord. I mean, the largest tenant in the country. So, I think we're headed for some pain. Yeah. But with crisis comes opportunity. There's going to be great deals in multifamily. I'm already seeing a ton of deals being sold for the debt plus fees, but they're trying to be sold, but they don't even pencil out at the debt right now. And so you're going to see banks taking haircuts. You're going to see auctions. The other thing is, I wish there was 2 of me because I'd love to buy businesses. There's 80 million baby boomers getting old, and I like to say getting old and getting cold, which doesn't serve you in Detroit, but it definitely does in Florida here. And I'm getting into senior housing. I'm going to be raising money for a senior housing deal probably in the next week or two. Love that asset class. I was going to do it years ago, and I got sidetracked, but but I would love to buy businesses as well. Like I said, so many baby boomers have businesses that they're going to have a difficult time selling. So it's just lots of opportunity. So if you're listening, freaking get up to speed on something. Okay, if it's multifamily, get your ass to my boot camp. If it's businesses, learn how to buy businesses. Whatever it is, get up to speed now. Don't wait. Okay. So, I'm big into mindset. I mean, that's like, 80 to 90% of your success. And I can tell you are too. You've even said a couple of Tony Robbins quotes while you're sitting here. So, I spent 20 years with him. So I reckon, proximity is power, for example.
Yeah.
So what's the drive, man? What's the why? What gets you to jump out of bed every morning? You're very dynamic. You're very passionate. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It all started with adversity, and something I love to say to people is adversity is your advantage. Growing up was tough, man. Like I said, my mother struggled with drugs, so I saw that. My first lesson in real estate was Chapter 7 bankruptcy, right? Learning what that meant and learning what happens when you don't pay a mortgage, right? So just very motivated.
How old were you then?
I was 14.
Wow, yeah, that's impactful at that age.
14.
Okay.
Yeah. Very motivated to my family and my future children to never experience that, but then also to use my message and, the pain to turn it into a process and to help other people, right? I know you're big on social media too. And, I think people who go through things and don't share on social media are selfish, right? Because our message can really help people. So it's also just showing people like, hey, look, I started with absolutely nothing, and we've built, a pretty great life for ourselves. Yeah. So if we can we always say, hey, we're not special.
How old are you now?
34.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. So we're not special. If we can do it, you can do it. So it's also about motivating and helping others. And I think that's where I have an affinity with you, because you don't have to be doing all this stuff, but you do it to help people. Yeah. And that's to me is the true definition of success, when I've created the life I want, but now I help other people go out and get it.
That's absolutely the truth. And people, they'll ask me what motivates me, and I tell them, and they're like, oh yeah, bullshit. That's just you being a guru talk. But no, I've got a walled in my office in my other building here with hundreds and hundreds of thank you cards. Yeah. The thing I was just bragging about was my student success. I mean, that truly gives me joy. Love it. So, it's not hyperbole. I mean, I've had all this stuff, the Lamborghinis and the Rolls and all this stupid shit I thought was important. Yeah. I'm past all that now. Yeah. But so let's talk about health, okay? Because that's really your baseline, and I'm like I was just telling you, I did NAD plus for 3 hours yesterday with an IV, and I slept really really good last night. Yeah. It was the sleep was fantastic. Yeah. I was just drinking my methylene blue, and I take more supplements than you've ever seen. Maybe not you, but sure. Damn near anybody else. Yeah, but so in your dietitian related conversations, is there a particular diet that you like? Okay, well, let's talk about it.
Well, it's just like investing, right?
In fact, hold on guys, you may not think this is freaking important, but if you've got children, you've got a W-2 job, and you want to do a side hustle, do you think energy is important? Do you think having enough energy to freaking come home from 8 or 9 hours of work, be there present for your kids, and then spend time on your side hustle requires energy? You better freaking believe it. So this may be more important than any of the other conversations I've had in a long time. So listen up. All right, I wanted to pre-frame it.
No, I love that, and I agree. Okay. Hey, $30 million can't buy you 30 more minutes on God's green earth.
That's true too,
right? So, what is wealth without health?
Right.
The best diet rod is the one you can stick to and the one you enjoy. Same thing with investing, right? Like the best investing strategy is the one you can stick to and one you can enjoy. And the one of the biggest epiphanies I had as a registered dietitian is you can't separate the physiology from the psychology. Food, nutrition, health is very psychological for people. You know what I mean? So it's very interrelated. It's not just, hey, follow this perfect diet. It's really like finding what motivates people, what their driving force is, and getting them on something they can stick to for the rest of their life. Same thing with investing, right? You always say you have to be investing for the long haul. Same thing with health. You have to do something that you can stick to for the long haul.
Okay, well, fair enough, but that was very macro.
Sure.
Macro squared. I mean, here's some of my opinions about health. Sure. Okay, number one, sugar is poison.
Okay.
No, and maybe you disagree, but I think sugar is absolute poison.
Sure.
I know whenever I get sick, it's always when I've had some dessert and or alcohol, and that's the only time I ever get sick.
Sure.
I think carbs aren't good. I think anytime I've done the ketogenic thing, I feel better. I lose weight. My cognitive function improves.
Sure.
My ex, who's my best friend, Tiffy, has done that carnivore diet thing, and her blood work has gotten perfect. Sure. I mean, but it's hard to stick with that. Just meat and eggs and cheese and all that. But is there like a program that you teach more than another?
Sure.
I mean, I'd love your opinions. If you
Yeah.
disagree with anything I just said, I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean, you're saying things that are on a high level very true. You know, like
Okay.
like sugar's an organic compound, like naturally there, and there's different types of sugar.
Well,
like,
of course.
right.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I
I
mean?
agree with you on that. Okay.
But here's the thing, like you said, hey, she was able to start this, but then it's hard to stick to. Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to stick to it. So always like lean proteins,
Good point.
energy focused, right?
Right.
So lean proteins, fruits, vegetables, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats. But we always say the compliance is in the science, right? Like you have to be able to stick to the program for it to work out. You know?
Yeah,
what I
you
mean?
said that at the start, and that's a
Yeah.
very, very good point
Yeah.
because she hasn't been able to stick to it. So
Because
yeah,
then
there
it
is
doesn't
that.
matter if you start it and reverse out of it and then lose the benefits of it. So
Right.
it's like, what can I stick to long term? But I love what you said earlier too. It's like energy. Like
Right.
you know, back to let regret be your guide.
Mm-hmm.
If you eat that sugary food, you eat that out, you have that alcohol, and you immediately regret it afterwards. The next morning, you get that anxiety, that hungover.
I had a sinus infection for like almost 3 weeks 2 weeks ago because I went to Nashville.
Okay.
I didn't have my vitamins. And I'm like, oh, I'm by myself. You know what? I'm gonna treat myself. And
Yeah.
I had dessert and I had a drink and I was fucked. I mean, I was sick for 3 weeks because of that.
Yeah.
But
You gotta let those regrets be your guidance. So
Yeah.
if you get that regret the morning after, dude, cut it out.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Success is subtractive, Rod, especially with health. It's not about what I add into, it's what I eliminate and what I get rid of.
Yeah.
So your body's gonna tell you, your body's gonna give you those cues. You have to listen to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, bread screws me up too. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I have keto bread. That's not so bad.
You tried the Ezekiel bread?
Oh, I love that. But
Yeah.
you gotta keep it frozen,
Frozen,
and
yeah,
all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff, and it's
Yeah.
real dense.
Yeah.
I should get back to that. You know,
Yeah.
Tiffy just bought some more of that stuff. I bought her a toaster the other day for that, just for
Yeah.
that very reason.
Yeah.
In that coaching that you do with the telehealth stuff, I'm sure you do like a dive into what they're doing,
Yeah.
and what they want, and you know what their outcome, what they believe their outcome is, whether it's weight loss, whether it's energy, whatever it is, and then you discover what they like and you figure out what the best plan for them is. Is that the plan?
100%.
Yeah.
It's all individualized.
Right.
You know what I mean? And especially as registered dietitians, we're able to look at lab work too. This is a medical credential.
Okay.
Right. So you let the physiology kind of be a guideline, right? It's kind of like looking at a pro forma
Right.
for the human body though, right? But then as I progressed that business, we actually started offering education and continuing education credits for other registered dietitians. So I don't do like direct to patient
Oh, you
anymore.
don't anymore.
No, it's
Gotcha.
more like
Okay.
B2B.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. So like certifications and continuing education credits for other registered dietitians.
Oh, interesting.
So that's how the business
Oh,
evolved.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, I was going to help do a plug if you wanted some clients on the B2C component,
Yeah.
business to customer. But okay, well, fair enough. What do you love the most about the role you play in what you do?
Yeah.
And maybe even what don't you love the most? Think about that for a minute. Is there an area of the business that you really enjoy more than another?
Absolutely. I think for most people, right, it's finding the deal, negotiating the deal,
It's the treasure hunt.
the acquisition.
Okay.
Right. And then,
Okay.
when you're able to do the refinance, right, or an exit, that's always fun. But the money's made in the management and the operations. And now where we're at is we manage our team and manage our managers, right? But that's the hard part. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. Like leading people is tough. Managing people is tough.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Every business is nothing but people and systems. You've got to hire the right people and you've got to have the right systems, especially the property management business.
100%.
Yeah.
So just really building that from the ground up, that's where we took a lot of lessons, because it started with just my wife was the manager.
Wow.
She was doing it, managing 87 units. But then as we've expanded, like you said, those protocols and processes, we had to create all that from scratch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like here's what to do if a tenant wants a refund on an overpayment. Here's what to do when they want to break their lease early. So that's the least fun part about owning real estate, but that's where all the money is made.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm surprised you didn't get burned out. She's sitting over here. You guys can't see her out of that
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
here, but because that I've had lots of property managers burn out because
Totally.
you don't get a phone call when somebody's happy,
Right.
right, and
Right.
so there's a lot of negativity. Very rare, let's put it that way, but a lot of negativity there.
Yeah, it's a
So
it's very thankless profession. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, would you agree? Could you have built to where you're at today without having that management component?
No. I still own a management company just for the few handful of small stuff I have around here, but no. And my intention, I'm in 2 markets that I really like, and my intention is to vertically integrate in those 2 markets.
Love that.
And so that's the focus, and it'll be a while yet because again, the banks are their catchphrase is extend and pretend.
Right.
And so, at some point they're going to be like, okay, we need to do something, and then we're going to start seeing deals.
That's why I was curious your take on that, because we've heard that for a while, like this.
Oh yeah, I've been talking about it for 3 years. I thought COVID was going to do it,
right.
But my kids love to tell me, "You're tired of being wrong."
Yeah.
But it's for sure now. There's no question. I mean, we got. Unless the rates come back to 3%,
yeah.
Okay, I think that's the only thing that could possibly save the commercial real estate environment. And I still don't think it's going to save office. People like to work at home now. Zoom has changed everything, and so there's going to be a reckoning in the commercial real estate space, no questioning. And from a macroeconomic standpoint, unless these tariffs really impact our national debt and really turn things around, I think it's going to take time. And I think if we're not already in a recession, we're going to be in one.
Yeah.
And I think it's inevitable. And, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I had somebody sit in that chair and tell me that 80% of the currency in circulation was created in the last 4 years.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And we wonder why there's inflation.
Right.
I mean, hello.
Right.
So, listen, I got crushed in 08 and 09. I'm not getting crushed this time. I'm ready for it. I've got a lot of cash. I'm ready to go in and buy some assets, and there will be incredible opportunity. And I think there'll be top opportunity to buy every asset class. Stay away from office. That's my 2 cents on that. But everything else is exciting. I love senior housing. I love mobile home parks, self-storage. I wouldn't do student housing either. Student housing I'm worried about because the student demographic is decreasing.
Yeah.
The baby boomers had the big boom of students, and now that's changing. So I'd be careful with student housing. But the other asset classes, I love industrial flex space. Are you thinking any other asset classes? You're going to stick with residential?
We love senior housing too.
Yeah.
We've made a couple offers on those.
Oh, you
know
have?
what
Good,
I mean?
good,
Yeah.
good.
But I love that model.
The key is the operator.
Yeah.
The key is the operator.
Yeah.
You've got to find somebody that really loves the elderly, has great systems, has great culture for their employees because they're low paid.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have a great culture. You've got to validate them, praise them, and encourage them, motivate them. And that's, when you've got somebody that's able to do that in a senior housing component, that's the recipe for success. But now I think we're going to do it in a big way.
Love that.
And figure out a way to scale it and really do some big things. And so I'm very excited about that. And I love the elderly, and I love kids as well, but I have an affinity for the elderly too. So is there a book that you like to gift more than another?
I love that. You mentioned Tony Robbins earlier. The Unlimited Power is the one that truly
That's the first one I read too.
Yeah. Changed my life. So I've gifted that a lot. On the business side, it's Influenced by Robert Cialdini. Have you read that one?
I've met Robert. I've spent time with Robert. That one and Persuasion.
Because I heard you say pre-frame, so I've identified.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like fundamental things with sales.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you're big on helping people syndicate. Like, man, you have to be able to sell the story, right? You have to be able to sell yourself, right? And the pre-frame and like the setting of all that. I mean, that was what. Understanding that book, I always reference Influenced by Robert Cialdini. If you understand those core things,
well, there's reciprocity,
there's social proof,
which huge.
You're huge on. You go on your website, it's just video and case study, as we do the same thing too. But if you can like just master those very simple things there, I mean, dude, that's the cornerstone of building a business.
We just recently started doing that really pushing it. Because I was like, big deal, But Matt on the team and the other people on the team are like, shit, we need to put more of the what people have accomplished, because it's pretty extraordinary. And
that's how people make a decision, right?
Right.
What is the pack doing?
What's everybody doing?
What's everyone else doing?
Right. And even the what is the I forgot what they call it, the limitation thing, like the velvet rope thing. The scarcity thing is also very powerful.
Huge.
All those strategies work. I learned a lot of that stuff from Tony. I was on his team for 8 years, and he'd make $20 million in about an hour. From stage.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's the best in the world at it.
I didn't know you were on his team.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was on his team for 8 years, and
wow.
I've followed him around the planet for 20. And finally, his head of security is like, dude, why don't you just jump on the team here, and then you don't have to pay to come anymore and all that. I'd go to his premier event, Date with Destiny. I went every year for 11 years in a row, because every year I'm working on something new.
Sure.
I want to continue to improve. If you're not improving, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're flatlined, you're dying.
Right.
And so, I'd be working on my health or my business or my relationships with my kids or my ex at the time, it was a lot of fun. In fact, had I not gotten in a bad car accident, I probably would have been one miking him up on that movie he did, I'm Not Your Guru.
Oh, yeah,
'cause that's the kind of stuff I was doing back
Oh,
then.
wow.
Yeah. So listening to this episode with you, what would you recommend someone that's listening do immediately to maybe implement some of these strategies?
Yeah, just get started, right? Imperfect action beats standing still. You know, I'm a big fan of, like I said, if you could skip the small stuff, the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s,
Yeah.
it's great. It's a great place to get started with.
Sure.
Man, if you could start with a 15, 20, 25 unit, you know what I
Even
mean?
an 8.
Even an 8.
Yeah.
Because it's the multifamily strategy, right?
Right.
It's the NOI game
Right.
versus the comparable sale game.
Right.
I've never had an appraiser ask me on a cash out refinance, what did the neighbor here sell for? What's
Right.
the neighbor there? It's what's your NOI. So learn the NOI game, right? And something we're a big proponent on is just go drive deals, go walk deals. Like you will learn so much looking at a P&L statement from a deal. You know what I mean? Just really starting to learn, like, oh wow, what is a normal repair and maintenance expense? What is a normal payroll expense? Wow, their landscape is high here. Wow, they're trash and water, utilities,
Yeah,
right?
What happened this month? What's going on? Why is that so high? You know,
Bingo.
looking for anomalies, things like that.
That's the big thing. I've noticed a lot of new multifamily investors. They want to be the podcast junkie or the YouTube junkie, which is great. You got to start there, like a boot camp. Those are great, but it's like sooner or later you got to start just looking at deals.
Well, you got to take action.
Yep.
Okay, massive freaking action.
Yeah.
I tell you, my most successful students aren't the smartest. They're not the ones with the most money. They're not the ones that live in a big city. They're the ones that just freaking go do it.
Yeah.
Which is why I spend so much time on mindset, because that's 80 to 90% of it.
Yeah.
You know, the mechanics is the smallest piece. It's just you
100%.
just got to go do it. And I love what you said.
Imperfect action always beats standing still.
Hell yes,
Yeah.
no question. So you have any favorite quotes?
Yeah, hypothetical is hypocritical, right?
Hypothetical is hypocritical. I don't even understand what that means.
So like if you say, hey, okay, I want you should invest in real estate, but you don't invest in real estate, or you say, hey, health is important, but you're not healthy.
Oh, gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha. It's what
You gotta
it's-
walk
it's-
the- you
it's
gotta
not-
walk
It's
the-
not what you say; it's what you freaking do.
Yes.
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. You know, just be about it. And I think that's a big thing too with social media. A lot of people talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
But who's actually out there doing it?
Or they take staged pictures,
Yeah,
you know, in
yeah,
front of the vehicles,
yeah.
and I've seen some real funny shit there.
Yeah.
But I tell you, as far as social media, I think we live in the greatest time on earth
100%.
to create reach. I mean, good God! I mean, this is the largest podcast in the world by far for what I do, and all I did was be consistent and add value.
I love
You
that.
know, I have the largest multifamily Facebook group. Same thing, just be consistent, to weed out the trash, and that was it. Just it kind of built itself, and so if there was ever if there was ever a time to create reach, to raise money, to find deals, to build an infrastructure, to build anything, we live in the greatest time ever to do that.
100%. My
Yeah.
first business was solely built off of social media.
Really?
So it's organic,
Yeah.
right? Free reach. And like you said, I would say there's social media and then there's business media. Social media is what's used on you. It's when you like get in the doom scroll, you start just consuming. But when you create, that becomes business media, right? That's how you can then get your message out there to help people and bring in customers, bring in clients, all those things.
Sure.
So is social media being used on you, or are you creating business media out there to grow?
Well, for me, unfortunately, it's both, because I've been sucked into TikTok. Oh, good
we
God,
all
don't
get
get me
there.
started. Jesus.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, I could get started on TikTok, and 5 hours later, I'm like, are you kidding?
You're
You
still
just
there?
sat here watching
Yeah.
this stupid shit for 5 hours?
No, I get it.
You know, I used to go on vacation. I used to read a book a day. I'm a very fast. You saw my books downstairs.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
got
yeah.
thousands. And now I sit on freaking TikTok, but I enjoy it. It's relaxing, but
Yeah.
there's no growth involved.
Well, like you said, it's got to be a combination of both.
Yeah.
You have to, we say infotainment, right? You have to be informative, but there's got to be a level of entertainment. Because
Yeah.
people do go to social media to be entertained.
Yeah,
right?
very true. Very true. Yeah, I tell people the two most important things with social media, and I've got a course that I give my warriors called Crushing It in Social Media. And the whole premise is be consistent and add value.
100%.
If you put crap out there, you're crap. That's
Right,
it.
right.
And I mean, with ChatGPT, you can do a lot more now. It'd be interesting to see how that affects all of that. But well, one thing I wanted to ask you, because you're very healthy and like I say, passionate about what you do. One of the gifts that I give my warriors is the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Okay.
About how you start your day. Do you have a typical morning routine yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So wake up. First thing is hydration. Got to get
Right.
your body rehydrated. So electrolytes, branched chain amino acids. Then I go and I journal, but back to I journal my regrets. I'm really big on let your regrets be your guide, right? So like, hey, what in the last day did I regret? When the last week did I regret? It could be business, could be personal, it could be health, could be something I ate. You know, I really align with what you said. Sometimes we eat something, you wake up the next day and you're like, man, you know, I don't feel good with that. So cutting that out. And then I go into my MIT's most important task, right? To move the money needle forward in my business. So I try my first hour of every day. So easy as an entrepreneur to get into the busy work, right? Let me answer emails, let me check social media, but how do I move the money needle forward in my business, right? So whatever that needs to be, and then I get into movement, right? Back to Tony Robbins, change your physiology to change your psychology.
It's called the triad.
Yeah. Right. So get moving and then, you know, it's 9 a.m. and start the day.
I love the MIT thing, the most important task. You know, it's the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. You know, one of the things I teach at my boot camps is my weekly planning process. And part of that process includes, you know, looking at your entire to-do list and looking at what's going to move the needle. You know, and I'll have, and I warn my students about this, my warriors. I said, don't send me your freaking logo and ask me what I think about it. Tell me how many brokers you've called.
Bingo.
Tell me, you know, how many deals you've underwritten. You know, don't get caught up in moving stuff from this side of your desk to that side of your desk.
100%.
Okay. You know, and everybody's guilty of it, but you want to minimize that as much as you can.
Big difference between being busy and productive.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And that's what's tough about being an entrepreneur. We can be very busy all day long, but you didn't move the money needle forward. And there's no one checking you out. Like you said, you could spend all day tweaking with a logo, but that's not going to actually grow your business.
Correct.
I love what you said. Very, very outcome and very production focused. What did you do to grow the business?
I had a coach when I was losing everything in 2009. Well, actually the second time. So I lost everything in 2008. I lost $50 million. And then I built a litigation support company that almost bankrupted in the end of 2010. I hired a business coach. And he helped me focus on income generating activity.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and turned into a, you know, big company with 60 employees after that.
Wow.
But, you know, and that's what a coach can do. They can look at it from the outside and give you some nudges 100%. And just change everything.
They see what we can't.
Right.
Because
exactly.
we're so myopically focused on like.
Well, we're inside the business instead of looking outside, you know, looking at it. And, you know, I've had coaches my whole life. I've got coaches now. I've got a relationship coach. You know, I want to be better in relationship. And I show this picture at my events of I didn't go to college, but it's me with my arms out, and I've got hundreds of lanyards around my neck and on my arms from my boot camps, masterminds, workshops, all the stuff that I went to, you know, specific and coaching that I've had.
Yeah.
But
no, I love that. Your income will never exceed your level of personal development.
That's it. And if you're not growing, you're dying.
100%.
Yeah. Well, listen, brother, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's a pleasure to meet you and your lovely bride. And I'm excited to see where you're at in another year or two. I'm sure it's going to be extraordinary.
Thank you, Rod. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.